She ran from a man who tried to control her life, and found safety in the arms of a stranger and his little girl. But when her past came crashing back, she had to choose: keep running or finally stand and fight for freedom. What happened next will break your heart. And heal it too. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment where you watching from. The night was heavy with rain. Virginia skies opened up as if the heavens themselves were mourning, pouring water into every crack of the city streets. The alley was dark, the pavement slick and uneven, and the only sound that broke through the storm was a woman's voice. Soft, trembling and desperate. "Please don't hurt me. I can't walk." Her words echoed against the brick walls, carried by the wind and swallowed by the rain. Naomi Ellis had once been the picture of control. A woman raised to command respect, to be polished, untouchable, successful. She was used to rooms filled with light, glass windows that touched the sky, and people who bowed their heads when she entered. But tonight she was curled up on the cold ground of a back alley, soaked to the skin, her white suit ruined with dirt and tears. Her hair, once pinned neatly, now hung loose and tangled, sticking to her wet cheeks. And worst of all, her ankle was twisted badly, swelling so fast it looked like it belonged to someone else. She had run barefoot through the streets, clinging to a laptop pressed tight against her chest as if it were her last possession on earth. And in a way it was. That computer carried the proof, the emails, the files, the plans, that revealed the man she once thought she loved, Jason Ward, was nothing more than a predator in a tailored suit. Jason had been her fiancé, the CFO of her father's company, and the man everyone said would give her the future she deserved. But behind closed doors, Jason's charm turned into chains. His voice turned sharp, his hands rough. And tonight, when she refused once again to hand over her shares, to sign away her freedom, his mask had finally dropped. He had reached for her with a look in his eyes that sent Naomi running like she never had before. But she couldn't run anymore. The pain in her ankle was unbearable. Every breath rattled in her chest as she pressed her back against the cold wall. The shadow of Jason's figure stretched closer. His footsteps deliberate, unhurried. He was enjoying this, the sight of her broken, cornered, helpless. Rainwater streamed around her, soaking her suit, mixing with her tears. Naomi pressed a shaking hand against the wall, trying to push herself further back, though there was nowhere left to go. The headlights of a car passing by lit up the alley for a brief second, and she saw Jason's clenched fists. Her heart thundered. And then another sound. From the corner of the alley, a man appeared. He was tall, broad-shouldered, carrying a little girl wrapped in a faded yellow raincoat. His brown skin glistened with rain, his boots leaving wet prints on the pavement. His face was tired, rugged, but when he heard Naomi's voice, something in him shifted. The little girl stirred in his arms and whispered, "Daddy, is she gonna die?" He set her gently down by the corner, crouching so he was eye level with her. His voice was calm but firm. "Stay right here, Emma. Don't move." The girl, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit, nodded silently. She had the kind of trust only a child could give, and she believed every word her father said. Then the man stepped forward into the alley. His voice cut through the rain like steel. "Step away from her. Now." Jason froze, startled, and turned. For a moment, tension filled the air so thick it was hard to breathe. But the man's eyes, steady, unwavering, filled with something stronger than anger, held Jason in place. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even fear. It was the quiet certainty of someone who had faced fire before and wasn't afraid to do it again. Jason shifted uncomfortably, his bravado faltering. For the first time that night, he realized he wasn't in control. Slowly he took a step back, then another, and with one last glance, he turned and disappeared into the shadows, swallowed by the storm. The alley was silent except for the sound of rain hitting metal gutters. Naomi blinked, her breath catching. She could hardly believe it. The stranger walked toward her, his boots splashing through puddles. He knelt beside her carefully, his voice softer now. "You're safe. I've got you." She stared at him, lips parted, unable to find words. Her entire body shook. Not just from the cold, not just from the pain in her ankle, but from the shock of being seen when she thought she was invisible. From the entrance of the alley, the little girl peeked in, her eyes wide and curious. Lightning flashed across the sky, followed by the low rumble of thunder. The man looked into Naomi's eyes. "My name's Caleb," he said. "Caleb Brown. And you don't have to be afraid anymore." For the first time that night, Naomi's tears fell not from fear, but from the strange, fragile relief of being saved. Caleb Brown lived on the third floor of an old, crumbling apartment building in Richmond, Virginia. The place smelled faintly of rust and damp wood, but it was home. At 32, Caleb's life had been split down the middle, before he lost his wife and after. 2 years ago, cancer had taken her quickly, without mercy. Since then, his world had shrunk into something small and steady. He worked as a washing machine repairman, scraping enough together to keep the lights on and the fridge filled. Some days he smelled like detergent, other days like rusted pipes, but he didn't mind. As long as Emma had food in her belly, crayons to color with, and a roof over her head, he considered himself blessed. But once, Caleb had worn a different uniform. He used to be a firefighter paramedic, the kind of man who ran into burning buildings while others ran out. His left arm still carried a long scar, a mark from the day he pulled a little girl out of a collapsing house. She hadn't survived, and he never talked about it. Some memories weren't meant for stories. They were meant to be carried in silence. Now, his whole world was Emma, 6 years old, with a laugh so bright it could chase shadows out of the darkest rooms. She loved her battered crayon box more than anything else, coloring flowers and rainbows on every scrap of paper she found. "Colors make things better," she always said. And to Caleb she was right. Her tiny hands brought life back into a home that had once been hollow. That rainy night, Caleb had promised her a hot dog from the corner stand if she behaved while he did the grocery run. They were cutting across the alley, heading home, when they heard it, Naomi's voice. Scream, raw and broken. In that moment, everything in Caleb's body remembered who he used to be. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think twice. He stepped forward, carrying the weight of his daughter's trust, and found Naomi broken on the ground. He didn't know her name yet. He didn't know her story. All he knew was that someone needed saving. And he had always been the kind of man who couldn't walk away. So he carried her out of the rain, her body trembling in his arms, Emma trailing behind him with her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. They climbed the narrow stairs of his building, each step creaking under his weight. Naomi clutched the laptop to her chest the whole way, her knuckles white with fear. When he reached his apartment, Caleb kicked the door open gently and laid her down on his couch. "It's okay," he said again. "You're safe here." Emma stepped inside, her rain boots squeaking on the floor. She looked at Naomi with wide eyes, then at her father. Finally, in a small, serious voice she asked, "Daddy, why is she crying like me when I miss Mommy?" The words pierced the air like lightning. Naomi's breath hitched. Caleb froze for a moment. He hadn't expected his daughter to notice so much. He cleared his throat softly. "She's had a hard day, honey. Sometimes grown-ups cry too." Emma nodded solemnly, as if she understood far more than her years allowed. Then she turned and wandered toward her little room, clutching her stuffed bunny close. Naomi wiped her cheeks, her body still trembling. Caleb draped a clean towel around her shoulders and said quietly, "I'll make you some tea." She only nodded. She didn't have the strength to speak. And for the first time in her life, sitting in a stranger's worn apartment with crayons scattered across the kitchen table and the faint smell of ginger tea filling the air, Naomi Ellis felt something unfamiliar but real. Not power. Not wealth. Not control. Safety. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something new. Morning crept into Richmond quietly. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets washed clean, as if the world had been given a second chance. But inside Caleb Brown's small apartment, the storm had only just begun. Naomi Ellis woke up on the couch, her body stiff and sore. Her ankle throbbing under the bandage Caleb had wrapped around it the night before. For a long while she didn't move. She stared at the ceiling, tracing the cracks in the paint, listening to the sounds of the apartment. Water dripping in the kitchen sink, the soft hum of the refrigerator, and the faint sound of a child's laughter from the other room. Felt strange. For years, her mornings had started with meetings, schedules, emails, and the sound of Jason's voice reminding her of everything she owed him. But here there was no schedule, no demands, only the smell of something frying in a pan and the gentle clatter of dishes. Naomi shifted, wincing at the sharp pain in her ankle. The movement must have caught Caleb's attention, because he appeared from the kitchen, holding a spatula in one hand. His hair was messy, his t-shirt wrinkled, but there was something steady about him, something real. "You're awake," he said simply, setting the spatula down. "How's the ankle?" Naomi swallowed, her throat dry. "Hurts," she admitted quietly. He nodded, not pressing her for more. "Breakfast's almost ready. You should eat." She wanted to protest, to say she wasn't hungry, but the truth was her stomach growled at the smell of scrambled eggs and toast. She hadn't eaten since the day before. Jason had cornered her before dinner, and she hadn't had a chance to breathe since. Caleb returned to the kitchen. Naomi watched him move, calm, deliberate, the way someone who had learned patience lived. It was the opposite of Jason's restless energy, the opposite of her world of deadlines and deals. Then Emma appeared, still in her pajamas, her hair in little curls sticking up in every direction. She carried her stuffed rabbit under her arm, dragging it along the floor as she came to stand by Naomi's couch. "Hi," Emma said, her voice soft but curious. Naomi blinked at her, unsure what to say. "Hi," she finally whispered back. Emma tilted her head. "You cried a lot yesterday." Heat rushed to Naomi's cheeks. She opened her mouth, then closed it, unsure how to answer. But Emma wasn't looking for an explanation. She simply climbed up onto the couch and sat beside Naomi, her little legs swinging. "My mom used to cry sometimes too," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Daddy says it's okay. It just means you're sad inside." Naomi felt a lump rise in her throat. She turned her head, staring at the window so the child wouldn't see her tears. How could someone so small speak such simple, piercing truth? Caleb's voice called from the kitchen. "Emma, set the table." "Okay." Emma hopped down, scampering off toward the kitchen, the rabbit still dragging along the floor. Naomi exhaled slowly, gripping the blanket Caleb had given her the night before. For the first time in years, she felt the sharp ache of something she had almost forgotten existed. Not just sadness, not just fear, but longing. She longed for the kind of home where mornings began with scrambled eggs and a child's laughter. A place where love wasn't measured by contracts or control, but by the way someone cared enough to set out an extra plate at the table. Breakfast was quiet but warm. Caleb set a plate in front of Naomi. Toast, eggs, a slice of apple. She hesitated at first, but the way Emma dug into her food without hesitation made Naomi smile faintly. She picked up the fork and took a small bite. Caleb didn't push her to talk. He didn't ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. Instead, he let the silence sit between them like a comfortable blanket. For Naomi, who had lived years in a world where silence was dangerous, it felt strange. But it also felt safe. Finally Caleb spoke. "You should probably see a doctor about that ankle." Naomi stiffened, panic flickering across her face. "No," she said quickly, too quickly. I can't. Not now." His eyes narrowed slightly, studying her. "Because you're hiding from someone." The words weren't a question. They were a quiet observation, the kind of truth a man like Caleb could see without needing it explained. Naomi lowered her gaze, her fork clinking against the plate. "I don't want to bring trouble to your home," she whispered. Caleb leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "Listen, Miss Ellis." "Naomi," she corrected softly. Naomi, he repeated. Whatever you're running from. You don't have to tell me. Not yet. But you should know one thing. She lifted her eyes, meeting his steady gaze. This home may be small, may not look like much, but it's safe. And while you're under my roof, no one is going to hurt you. Understand? For a moment Naomi couldn't breathe. The words hit her like a weight lifting off her chest. She wanted to believe him. She needed to believe him. And in his eyes, she saw no trace of the lies she had grown used to. Only truth. She nodded, a single tear sliding down her cheek. Thank you, she whispered. The days that followed were slow, almost painfully so. Naomi couldn't move much on her ankle, so she spent most of her time on the couch, the laptop always close by. Caleb never asked what was on it, though she caught him glancing at it more than once. Emma became her constant companion, drawing pictures and proudly showing them to Naomi. One afternoon, Emma drew a picture of 3 stick figures holding hands under a big yellow sun. That's me, Daddy, and you, Emma explained cheerfully. Naomi stared at the paper, her throat tightening. Why did you draw me? Because you're here now, Emma said simply, as if that was the most natural explanation in the world. Naomi had no answer. She only pulled the child into her arms, holding her close while Emma giggled. But at night, when the apartment was quiet, Naomi lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The fear always returned then. Jason was still out there. He had power, connections, money. He wouldn't let her go easily. Sometimes she thought she heard footsteps outside the apartment. Sometimes she dreamed of Jason's voice, whispering threats in the dark. She would jolt awake, trembling, clutching the laptop to her chest. Caleb noticed. He always noticed. One night, he sat on the edge of the couch and spoke softly. You can't keep running forever, Naomi. Whatever's on that computer, it's eating you alive. She shook her head, her eyes wet with tears. If I tell the truth, he'll destroy me. If I stay silent, I destroy myself. I don't know which is worse. Caleb placed a hand gently on hers, firm and steady. You're stronger than you think. You don't have to fight this alone. Her heart ached at his words. For so long she had been alone, fighting battles no one saw, smiling in public while bleeding in private. And here was a man who barely knew her, offering to stand by her side without asking for anything in return. Terrified her. It also gave her hope. One rainy evening the doorbell rang. Naomi froze instantly, her body stiffening. Caleb glanced toward the door, then back at her. Expecting someone. She shook her head quickly, panic rising in her chest. Don't open it. But it was too late. Emma, curious as always, had run to the door and peeked out the window. Daddy, there's a man outside. Naomi's breath caught. Her hands trembled. She pulled the blanket tighter around herself, heart hammering in her chest. Caleb moved to the door, blocking Emma with his arm. His voice was steady, calm but firm. Emma, go to your room. The little girl obeyed immediately, clutching her rabbit and scurrying down the hall. Naomi's pulse roared in her ears. The knock came again, louder this time. Caleb reached for the doorknob but paused, glancing back at Naomi. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. Is it him? Caleb asked quietly. Naomi swallowed hard, her voice breaking. If it is, don't let him in. Please. The apartment fell silent, the storm outside building once again. And in that moment, Naomi realized the truth she had been running from. No matter how far she fled, Jason Ward was not finished with her. He would keep searching, keep hunting, until she either gave him what he wanted or found the courage to fight back. And for the first time she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as powerless as she thought. The knocking at the door seemed to last forever. Each sound echoed through the walls like a drumbeat, pounding in rhythm with Naomi's heart. She sat frozen on the couch, gripping the blanket so tightly her knuckles turned white. Caleb stood at the door, his shoulders squared, every muscle in his body tense. He hadn't opened it yet, but he was close. His eyes flicked to Naomi once more. "Stay calm," he said, his voice low and steady. "I've got this." But Naomi shook her head fiercely, her breath catching. "You don't understand. If it's him, he won't stop. He'll—" Another knock interrupted her, louder, sharper this time. Naomi pressed her face into the pillow, whispering prayers under her breath. She wasn't a religious woman, not really. But in that moment she prayed with everything she had. Finally, Caleb unlocked the chain and pulled the door open just a few inches. It wasn't Jason. It was a neighbor, a tired-looking man in his 50s with a beer belly and a friendly smile. He held up a bag of groceries. "Hey, Caleb. You left this at the corner store. Figured I'd drop it by before it spoiled." The tension drained out of Caleb's shoulders. He accepted the bag with a polite nod. "Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it." "No problem. Take care." When the neighbor left, Caleb shut the door and relocked it, turning back toward Naomi. She was trembling, tears streaming down her face, but her relief was palpable. She pressed a hand to her chest, exhaling shakily. Caleb set the bag on the counter and came to sit across from her. "You thought it was him?" Naomi nodded, ashamed. "I live in fear every second. Even when it's quiet, I feel like he's just around the corner. Watching. Waiting." Caleb leaned forward, his gaze firm but gentle. "You don't have to face him alone, Naomi. Not anymore." Her lips trembled. "Why are you helping me? You don't even know me." He was silent for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Because I know what it feels like to lose someone. And I know what it feels like to wish you'd done more. I won't let that happen again." Naomi didn't ask for details. She didn't need them. The pain in his voice told her everything. The days that followed became a strange rhythm, both fragile and comforting. Naomi stayed mostly in the apartment, resting her ankle and trying to gather the courage to figure out her next step. Caleb continued working his odd repair jobs, leaving early and returning late with tired eyes but always a smile for Emma. Emma seemed to bloom with Naomi there. She drew pictures for her new friend, taught her silly songs, and sometimes even insisted that Naomi read her bedtime stories. One evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Naomi sat with Caleb at the small kitchen table. The laptop sat between them, its black screen like a silent witness to the storm they were avoiding. Caleb broke the silence first. "What's on it?" Naomi hesitated. Her chest tightened. She had kept the secret close, guarding it with her life. But she saw the steady patience in Caleb's eyes, and for the first time, she wanted to share the weight. "It's proof," she whispered. "Emails, contracts, bank records. Jason's been funneling money from the company into his own accounts. He's tied to people you don't want to know about. If this gets out, it ruins him. But if he gets to me first." Her voice trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Caleb leaned back, processing her words. "So that's why he was chasing you." Naomi nodded, her hands trembling. "He wants me to sign over my shares, hand him the laptop, and disappear. And if I don't, you think he'll kill you?" Her silence was answer enough. Caleb rubbed his face with both hands, exhaling slowly. "You're carrying a war in that computer, Naomi. And you're carrying it alone." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted a life where I wasn't controlled, where I could breathe. But instead, I feel like I'm drowning." Caleb's voice softened. "You're not alone anymore. Not here. Not with me." The words landed deep in her heart, leaving her both comforted and terrified. She wanted to trust him, but trust was a fragile thing, easily broken, easily destroyed. One Saturday afternoon, Naomi found herself sitting on the living room floor with Emma. The little girl had spread crayons and paper all around, drawing a picture of a house with a big tree and a swing. "This is our home," Emma explained proudly, pointing at the picture. "And that's you in the window." Naomi laughed softly, her eyes misty. "Why am I in the window?" "Because you're part of us now," Emma said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. The words struck Naomi so deeply she couldn't answer right away. She pulled Emma close, hugging her tight. And for a fleeting moment, Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in years: belonging. But the moment didn't last. That evening, while Caleb was cooking dinner, Naomi heard something outside the apartment. Faint scrape. A shadow moving past the door. Her chest tightened. She rushed to the window, peeking through the blinds. A black car sat idling on the street below. Her blood turned cold. She stumbled back, nearly dropping the curtain. Her heart raced as memories crashed over her. Jason's eyes, Jason's threats, the way he whispered that she would never escape him. Caleb noticed her pale face immediately. "What is it?" She pointed with a trembling hand. "He's here. I know it. He's watching." Caleb went to the window, peering out. The car remained still, its headlights off, its windows tinted too dark to see inside. He clenched his jaw. "Pack your things," he said firmly. Naomi shook her head. "Where will we go? He'll follow me anywhere. Then we make it harder for him. But you can't stay here. Not if he knows where you are." Tears streamed down Naomi's face. "I don't want to ruin your life. Or Emma's." Caleb turned to her, his voice steady and unwavering. "Listen to me. You're not ruining anything. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not. And I'm not letting him hurt you." Naomi's breath caught. She wanted to argue, but his determination was undeniable. For the first time, someone was choosing to stand with her, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. That night, she sat on the couch, clutching the laptop to her chest, while Caleb moved quietly around the apartment, preparing. He checked the locks, packed a bag for Emma, and slipped an old baseball bat by the door. Naomi watched him, her heart aching. He wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. But he was steady. He was strong. And in his presence, she felt safer than she ever had in all her years of wealth and status. As she drifted off to sleep, she realized something that made her chest ache even more. She wasn't just afraid of Jason anymore. She was afraid of losing this fragile, unexpected family she had found in the Browns' tiny apartment. And maybe she was falling in love. The next morning, the black car was gone. But Naomi knew it was only a matter of time before Jason returned. The storm wasn't over. It was only gathering strength. And deep in her heart, Naomi understood something she had been running from for far too long. She couldn't keep hiding. Soon she would have to choose. To keep running until Jason destroyed her. Or to finally stand and fight, even if it meant risking everything. The next few days felt like walking on the edge of a cliff. Every sound outside the apartment made Naomi flinch. Every car engine, every footstep in the hallway sent her heart racing. She barely slept, clutching the laptop at night like a shield. Caleb did his best to keep the little household steady. He still went out to his repair jobs, but he came home quicker now, never staying out longer than he had to. Emma noticed the tension but didn't say much. Children had a way of sensing storms even before the clouds broke. One evening, Caleb came home with groceries. As he set the bags down, Naomi noticed the exhaustion in his eyes. He didn't complain, though. He never did. He only looked at her and asked, "Did you eat today?" Naomi nodded faintly. "Emma made me peanut butter sandwiches." Caleb smiled softly. "She's taken a liking to you." She's the reason I'm still breathing," Naomi admitted, her voice trembling. Caleb didn't press for more. Instead, he reached across the table, his calloused hand brushing hers. "Naomi, sooner or later, Jason is going to make his move. You can't hide forever. We need to face this." Her throat tightened. Face him. Caleb, he has everything. Money, lawyers, people who'd do anything for him. And me. I have nothing. His eyes softened. "That's not true. You have the truth. And you have me. That's more than you think." Naomi's chest ached. No one had ever stood beside her like this before. Not even her own family. But before she could respond, there was a sound outside. The screech of tires followed by heavy footsteps in the stairwell. Naomi froze. Caleb stood immediately, his entire body going tense. A sharp knock rattled the door. This time it wasn't the harmless knock of a neighbor. It was hard, demanding. "Naomi," a voice called from the other side. Smooth, cold, unmistakable. Jason Ward. Naomi's blood ran cold. Her hand shook violently. She backed against the wall, whispering, "He found me. Oh God, he found me." Emma peeked out of her room, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Caleb quickly motioned for her to stay hidden. "Go back inside, sweetheart. Close the door and don't come out." The little girl obeyed, her wide eyes filled with fear. Caleb grabbed the baseball bat he had kept by the door. He glanced at Naomi, his voice low and steady. "Stay behind me." Jason's voice came again, louder this time. Naomi opened the door. "We both know this game is over." Caleb tightened his grip on the bat. He whispered to Naomi, "Do you trust me?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. With one deep breath, Caleb unlocked the door and pulled it open. Jason stood there in a dark suit. His hair slicked back, his smile cold. Two men in black coats stood behind him, broad and intimidating. "Ah," Jason said smoothly, his eyes sliding past Caleb and locking onto Naomi. "There you are. My runaway bride." Naomi's knees nearly buckled. Caleb shifted, putting himself between her and Jason. "She's not going anywhere with you." Jason's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "And who are you?" "The hero neighbor. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" "I don't care," Caleb replied flatly. Jason chuckled, shaking his head. "Brave, but stupid. Naomi belongs to me." At those words, something inside Naomi snapped. For years she had let Jason define her, control her, silence her, chain her down. But hearing him claim her like a possession in Caleb's home, in front of the only people who had shown her kindness, lit a fire inside her chest. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "I don't belong to you. Not anymore. Not ever." Jason's smile faltered. For the first time, a flicker of anger crossed his face. "Careful, Naomi. You know what I'm capable of." Caleb didn't move, didn't waver. "You heard her. Leave." The tension in the air was suffocating. Jason's men shifted, ready to step forward. But before they could, Naomi did something no one expected. She raised the laptop, holding it against her chest. "This ends tonight. I have everything on you, Jason. Every lie, every stolen dollar, every threat. If anything happens to me, if you so much as breathe in my direction, the world will know who you really are." Jason's eyes darkened, his jaw tightening. "You wouldn't dare." Her voice grew stronger, louder. "Try me. I'm done running." The hallway fell silent, heavy with the weight of her words. Jason stared at her, his face twisted with rage, but behind his fury was something else, hesitation. He wasn't used to Naomi standing tall. He wasn't used to her fighting back. Finally he leaned closer, his voice a hiss. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," Naomi whispered. "But at least I'll be free." Caleb stepped forward, bat still in hand, his body shielding Naomi. "Time to go." Jason glared at them both, then turned sharply on his heel. His men followed, their footsteps echoing down the stairwell until the building was quiet again. Naomi collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving, tears streaming down her face. Caleb dropped the bat and caught her before she fell, holding her steady. "You did it," he whispered. "You stood up to him." She shook her head, sobbing. "He's not finished. He'll come back. Then we'll be ready," Caleb said firmly. Naomi looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. For so long, she had lived in a world where love was manipulation, where protection came with strings attached. But here, in Caleb's arms, she felt something entirely different. Strength, safety, a love that asked for nothing in return. And in that moment, she realized something she had been too afraid to admit. She wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. She was fighting for a future that included Caleb and Emma. That night, Naomi sat at the kitchen table, the laptop open in front of her. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling. Caleb sat across from her, his expression calm but steady. "What are you going to do?" Naomi swallowed hard. "The only thing I can. Expose him. If I stay quiet, he wins. If I speak, maybe I finally get my life back." Caleb nodded. "Whatever you decide, I'll stand with you." Tears filled her eyes. "Why? Why would you risk so much for me?" His voice was soft. "Because Emma already sees you as family. And because, so do I." Her breath caught. She covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed. "I don't deserve this." Caleb reached across the table, gently pulling her hands away. "Yes, you do. You deserve more than you've ever been given. And it's time you believed that." For the first time, Naomi allowed herself to hope. To believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't destined to live in fear forever. But Jason wasn't done. Naomi knew it. Caleb knew it. The storm had only just begun. And the next battle would decide everything. Her freedom, her future, and whether the fragile love she had found could survive the fire. The night Jason came to Caleb's door changed everything. Naomi didn't sleep at all after that. She sat awake, staring at the glow of the laptop screen, her thoughts racing like a storm. Every shadow outside made her shiver. Every creak in the old apartment made her heart skip. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. A spark of determination. For years, Jason had convinced her that she was powerless, that she was nothing without him. But in that moment at the door, when she had looked him in the eye and said she didn't belong to him, she had felt something break free inside her. She was done being silent. The next morning, Naomi made her decision. She was going to fight back. Not with fists, not with weapons, but with the truth. Caleb sat across from her at the kitchen table, sipping his coffee. Emma was coloring at the counter, humming softly. The smell of toast filled the room, ordinary and comforting. Naomi took a deep breath. "I'm going to release the files." Caleb's eyes lifted to hers. He didn't try to talk her out of it. He didn't tell her it was dangerous or impossible. He only asked, "Are you sure?" She nodded firmly. "If I don't, he'll never stop. He'll always come back for me. But if the world sees what he's done, he won't have that power anymore." Caleb reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was warm, steady. "Then let's do it together." Naomi's eyes burned with tears. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. They spent the entire day preparing. Naomi organized the files, screenshots, recordings, documents, all the evidence she had saved over the years of Jason's crimes and corruption. Caleb helped her upload them to multiple places so that they couldn't be erased. By evening, the story was ready. Naomi typed one final line into the email she was sending to the press. "My name is Naomi Ellis. This is the truth I've been too afraid to tell. But I'm not afraid anymore." With trembling fingers, she hit send. It was done. The fallout was immediate. Within hours, the news broke all over Virginia and then across the country. Jason Ward, the respected businessman, the polished fiancé everyone envied, was suddenly exposed for what he truly was. Abusive, manipulative, and corrupt. Headlines screamed his name. Television anchors repeated Naomi's words. Social media exploded with outrage and support. Other women came forward, adding their voices, telling their stories. Jason's empire began to crumble overnight. His board of directors distanced themselves. His investors pulled out. And soon, the police opened an investigation. Naomi watched the reports from Caleb's couch, her hands shaking, her breath uneven. She should have felt relief, but instead she felt raw. Exposed. Terrified. Caleb sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "You did it," he whispered. "You finally took your life back." She leaned into him, her tears falling freely. "I couldn't have done it without you. Without Emma. From the floor, Emma looked up with her wide eyes and innocent smile. Does this mean you're safe now? Naomi's heart ached. She knelt beside the little girl and hugged her tightly. I think so, sweetheart. I think so. But safety wasn't immediate. Jason, furious and desperate, tried to fight back. He sent lawyers, filed lawsuits, made threats. But the truth was too big to bury now. The evidence Naomi had released was everywhere. And this time she wasn't facing him alone. She had Caleb. She had Emma. She had the voices of countless women standing with her. And slowly, Jason's power dissolved into nothing more than a shadow. Weeks passed. Life began to change. Naomi started volunteering at a local women's shelter, speaking quietly to others who had been silenced, sharing her story. At first her voice shook. But the more she spoke, the stronger she grew. Caleb was always there, steady as the sunrise. And Emma, with her laughter and drawings, filled the days with light Naomi never thought she'd see again. One spring afternoon, as they planted flowers in Caleb's small backyard, Emma looked up suddenly and said, Naomi, are you going to stay with us forever? Naomi froze, soil on her hands, her heart leaping into her throat. She looked at Caleb, who gave her a gentle smile. His eyes soft and full of unspoken words. Tears filled Naomi's eyes as she turned back to Emma. If you'll have me, then yes. I'd love nothing more. Emma squealed with joy and hugged her tightly, dirt and all. Caleb chuckled, but when Naomi looked at him, there was a quiet promise in his gaze. Promise of a future. Months later, Naomi stood outside a small building painted in soft colors. On the sign above the door were the words, "The Emma House." It was a safe haven she had helped Caleb build, a shelter for women who needed refuge, a place where silence was broken and new beginnings could bloom. Naomi walked inside, her heart swelling as she saw women and children gathered, laughing, talking, healing. This was more than she ever imagined for herself. Caleb came up behind her, slipping his hand into hers. Emma ran ahead, showing off her latest drawing on the wall. Naomi took a deep breath, the sun streaming through the windows, warmth flooding her chest. For the first time in her life she felt free. Truly free. Not because Jason was gone. Not because the world finally knew the truth. But because she had chosen love. She had chosen family. She had chosen herself. And in the quiet strength of that choice, Naomi Ellis found the life she had always been searching for. A life built not on fear, but on hope. A life that finally felt like home.